We're going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair.
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're out there on YouTube. And also, rate that show 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast. Just download the podcast by searching for Unbearable Sports. You can click the link down below in the description to then instantly download it on all your favorite podcasting platforms. What is going on, Bears fans? The Bears have now officially trimmed their roster down to 53 guys. So, how are we feeling? Are we shocked? Are we in awe of the 53-man roster? What's everyone's feelings out there? What's good, Taco Man? Bear down to you as well. And yeah, you're asking, did you miss the All-22? Unfortunately, don't worry, you did not miss anything. I think I mentioned it really quickly. I had a crazy weekend. I have 4 children, all four were baptized all on the same day. So we had a big party. So I made a brisket. I did a lot of stuff. I had to coach flag football. So yeah, lots and lots of stuff. So unfortunately, no All-22, but we'll definitely be doing it as the season gets started. I might even just do it during the week too. That might be good. And then we'll only pay attention to the guys that actually made the team. So might have to do it again just for fun. It's always fun just hanging out with that. So I'll try and get something on the docket. Squeegee, what's good? Hope you're doing well. But yeah, so we're down to 53. Now it feels like football. Now it feels like things are going to get going. So now let's talk a little bit about this. So if we get into the players being cut, because that's the first thing that I want to go through. I also want to say this too. I didn't do a 53-man prediction officially. I didn't do an episode just because we had a bunch of stuff going on. And then they were already starting to cut people when I was going to do the episode. So I don't have it up as a graphic, but I can kind of talk through some of my mindsets as they were kind of going through it. But first and foremost, they cut quote unquote 2, or they put 2 on reserved and injured. So with designation for return. So after 4 weeks, they can then potentially come back. And that's Travis Homer and Amen Ogbongbemiga, which I think Amen Ogbongbemiga was someone that I think was a little bit more of a surprise that he was injured. Even like Travis Homer, I know that we all knew that a lot of the running backs were injured, and I don't think that we thought that it was going to be those guys that ended up getting placed on the short-term IR. But here we are. Homer not on it, and Ogbongbemiga not on it as well. So, but they can return after 4 weeks. Next, the waived injured for the following players: Tysheem Johnson, Doug Kramer, and Bill Murray. No surprises there. Tysheem Johnson, undrafted rookie. As we continue, and then also, I know some people like Doug Kramer, center. I've always kind of said never really a big fan of Doug Kramer as a blocker. Bill Murray just was not really healthy, so hence the injury designation as well. Then other waived players, Maurice Alexander. He was someone that I thought was going to make the roster early on, but then later on dwindled. And then he was off of mine when I made it, but just never broadcasted it out to people. Next, Jonathan Ford, the D tackle, Mekhi Garner, Jeremy Chroma, Jordan McFadden, who the Bears reportedly were trying to ship out and trade, which would have been amazing. Then Zach Pickens. We've said this since week 1 of preseason that Zach Pickens was going to get cut. Not a surprise there at all. To some it might, but you just never saw progression with the guy. You never saw him take steps in the right direction. So that's where I feel very comfortable with this. If he turns out to be good and solid in the league, awesome. But yeah, it just didn't make sense. JP Richardson, someone who was a camp darling, but ends up not being that later on. And then also Tyler Scott, which, we kind of waved back and forth a little bit with Tyler Scott. And I believe I had him not making the team. And I think a lot of it is because of Jahdae Walker. Jahdae Walker really kind of showed that you can't just cut him. You had to have him out there. And also, too, Jahdae Walker made plays in special teams. And I think that when you want to talk about it, Johnny Walker, that to me probably is one of the biggest reasons why he actually made that team. And I know some people probably think that's crazy to say, but it really isn't, because your sixth wide receiver, your fifth wide receiver, they're expected to play special teams. And what he was doing was he was giving you better special teams play, and what you saw, more reliable receiver play. And the dude is tall, and he's just a freak athlete. So to me, I love it. I really, really like it. And we did talk about Tyler Scott. We broke down the tape on him after the week 2. He was really, really trying out there. He was trying hard, but you never really heard a lot of what he was doing during the practices. Yet again, the games are good, but the practices are even better. Are you making plays during practice? It just never really felt like that. Also, Ricky Stromberg, solid at the center position, but ends up getting released. And also same thing with Miles Boykin, who was always banged up. Stephen Carlson, who wasn't great. And then Tano Passanio, which Brad Biggs reported, he expects him to potentially come back as a practice squad player that gets elevated on game day. Also, 2 players got activated to the roster, which was Jalen Johnson and Tory Taylor. Let's see what y'all are saying. Bill out there, bear it down to all of you guys out there. And I don't have every single cut that's out here, but like Ian Wheeler being gone, that hurt. It definitely did hurt, especially since you have a need for running back. We still have to see kind of who makes the practice squad. It might even be Britton Brown. Britton Brown really kind of showed a lot at that running back position. That's kind of the main stuff, the main cuts that ended up happening. But the other thing that I want to talk about is Zay Frazier, because Zay Frazier was someone that I remember, I forgot who it was. It might have been Courtney Cronin, someone saying that Zay Frazier went back into practice. And so that I said that on the show. But this was maybe a week or so ago. But today, Ben Johnson, I believe it was Ben Johnson or Brian Poles was asked about Zay Frazier. And the exact quote was, for Zay Frazier, a little bit of a complicated deal because he's going to go on NFI. He had a situation that presented itself in a category that I would say personal. As we dug into it, tried to help him out, it revealed itself as something that happened before he got here. So credit to our staff finding the root cause of what he was going through. So he'll be down for the year, but he'll spend the time going to meetings in the weight room and with the medical staff to prepare for next season to get ready to play. So kind of a bummer on the front end, but I think because of everyone's hard work and care here, we got him on the right path. So we don't know why. We don't know the specifics of anything. This is the most specifics, quote unquote, that we've gotten about Zay Frazier's situation, but not going to be out there. So it does not count against the 53-man roster. So Zay Frazier does not count against that. He is out for this season. So he's gone, unfortunately, but Zay Frazier out. So sad little story, you wish him the best just because he's going to be out this season. But now we need to have this defense good. So speaking of that, what's going to happen to this cornerback room? So I'm going to switch on over and let's talk about this cornerback room first, because the people that made the roster, Tyreek Stevenson, Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, Nashawn Wright, Josh Blackwell, and Nick McLeod. Kind of what you expected. Nick McLeod, I really liked what I saw out of him in the slot and also outside. Love the versatility. And also Nashawn Wright, very good camp, but one of the biggest questions was how he would handle speed. Now, you don't expect him to be out there every single down, but we saw him get absolutely torched against the Kansas City Chiefs. Not good. But yet again, the biggest thing is you just have to hope that Jalen Johnson is out there for week 1. Now, when asked about Jalen Johnson, they said, hey, he's not going to be placed on IR. They didn't put him on the short-term return, so you expect him within 4 weeks. But I don't have the exact quote, but I believe it was Ryan Poles or Ben Johnson. One of them said something along the lines of Jalen Johnson having a serious soft tissue injury or something like that, made it seem a little bit more serious than they thought, which is kind of what was echoed by a lot of the leadership inside of the Bears. So with this, with Tyreek, with Jalen, with Kyler, you just hope that they get back. Now, Kyler was out there on the field again, so good sign right there. Jalen's still going to be your biggest question mark. Now, we're going to be going against the Vikings. Hopefully, he has time to kind of get back and be good. So that's going to be a big thing that we are going to be looking out for. Other than that, safeties, Jaquan Brisker, Jonathan Owens, Kevin Byard, and Elijah Hicks. No surprises there. They were going to keep 4. And then at the linebacker position, there's a surprise for me here because T.J. Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, Noah Sewell, Ruben Hippolyte, I'm fine with that. But as a Power Eccles truther, as someone who likes Power Eccles, even though I don't think he might have had a great game last game, I wasn't a big fan of Carl Jones. And it might just be the style of linebacker that they want because Dennis Allen talked about this. He wants someone fast. He wants someone aggressive. That's not necessarily Power Eccles. That's not necessarily Swayze Bozeman, but that's what Carl Jones is. I just still, maybe he's a good special teamer as well. I was a little surprised by that. Or maybe he's one of the first that would be off the team. I'm very, very surprised at least with Carl Jones making the team because from what I was seeing, I just never really was too impressed. That was something that I just felt with it. But also, if we look at the defensive line, no surprises with the D tackles. Javon Dexter, Grady Jarrett, Shamar Turner, Andrew Billings, and Chris Williams. And at defensive end, like we said, Passanio might be the only surprise that you have on that. But Daniel Hardy, he's a big-time special teams ace. That's why they have him out here. Austin Booker, Dominique Robinson, Dayo Adengbo, and Montez Sweat. So really here, nothing too crazy. But also, I got to call you out, Taco Man. I totally agree. Saying that, can we get the refs on salary? Yeah, Kansas City definitely. Like when we were watching, just watching that game, there's a couple times that you're like, oh man, I get why people don't like the Chiefs. Because there's a couple bad plays. It reminded me of prime Packers with Aaron Rodgers, where I never really complain about the refs. I don't like people that do that day in, day out, right? But when it's against the Packers, it always seemed like some bad calls were happening, but it was Aaron Rodgers Packers. Jordan Love, I haven't seen it as much, right? But let's go over to the offense, where actually right before this, I was a little late. I had some technical difficulties, but kind of figured that out. But also, my brother-in-law, who's a Packer fan, asked me about some fantasy football advice with Luther Burden. I don't know if you guys think that this was good. You guys can call me out or chew me out for this if it's wrong. But he asked about drafting Luther Burden. And I kind of said, my personal take was, I think that he's getting a lot of hype because of his big plays. But still, if you're drafting him in fantasy football, I see him as a replacement for DJ Moore, for Rome Odunze. But like we've talked about, it's really Zaccheaus, Moore, Odunze as the top 3. Burden he's wide receiver 4, right? He's really kind of set in stone as that. And you can see this too, inside the depth chart. So with the depth chart, this is all from ourlads.com. We got Rome, DJ, Zaccheaus, and then backups, Luther Burden, Devin Duvernay, and Jade Walker. And also, actually, just to finish my thought with my brother-in-law, I did encourage him. I said, hey, Luther Burden, I wouldn't draft him right there, but who I would draft, Kyle Monangai. So I shouted out Kyle Monangai because I still think he's the person that they absolutely love on that team. So I was like, yeah, and he needed a running back. So I was like, go with Monangai. He could surprise people this year. But yeah, nothing too speaking of surprises, nothing too crazy like we talked about with the wide receivers. Duvernay, good special teamer. Luther Burden can kind of do both. If anything, he might be then the punt returner. We'll just have to see. And then Jade Walker, the man. So really like what we have at the wide receiver position. But if we go over to the offensive linemen, actually, we'll do everyone else, and then we'll talk O-line. Quarterbacks, I was still thinking that Case might have been on the practice squad, or they might kind of try to push something like that. Nope. Case Keenum, active roster. They're just doing the veteran a nice solid, giving him a full active roster salary rather than a practice squad salary. And we have running backs, Swift, Roschon, and Kyle Monangai. Expect something to happen, and we'll talk about that next. But I think then the surprise, Homer not out there, But yeah, we still have those three running backs, 3 tight ends, Colston Loveland, Cole Kmet, and Durham Smythe. I was a little surprised by this just because, since they like to run a lot of 2 tight end sets, I was thinking maybe they might have a 4th just in case if one goes down. But hey, Ben Johnson can kind of shift things around if need be. Also, these were kind of your 3 top ones. Durham Smythe didn't play too great, but still, you got your 2 top guys. But now if we look at the offensive line. The offensive line to me was surprising because they kept 10 total offensive linemen and 5 of which are offensive tackles. That's outrageous. And when asked about this, I believe it was Ryan Poles that said that, hey, they're looking at Karan Amagaji to kind of move inside as more of a guard. So they're going to try and see his flexibility from going to tackle to guard. So that will be something that we definitely need to keep an eye out for, because I think that they're looking at this tackle piece and saying, hey, you don't got the chops. You don't look the part. So can you give us at least, if you're going to be on this team, can you at least provide us some depth on the interior? Because Theo Benedette looks like the better tackle. So you want to keep that guy because they're around like the same age, and Theo's very cheap and he could potentially be something. Karan, there's still a lot more question marks. So they're going to try him out at some guard, see if he can kind of hold up with it to also kind of justify his spot. But still, having 10 offensive linemen on your roster is just a little crazy. But yeah, Theo Benedette ends up making the roster. We all knew that Ryan Bates, Luke Newman, Ozzie Trapillo, you feel good about those, but it's still a little awkward with Theo Benedette, Karan Amagaji. That's still the weird dynamic. And with him being a 3rd round draft pick, it does feel like if you were to cut him, that it's a true cut. It's not a demotion to practice squad or anything like that. It feels like if you were to do anything, it'd be Theo Benedette. So what this shows to me is it shows like they're not done with Karan. They still want to see what he can do. Yet again, was not able to be a part of training camp last year, was banged up constantly. And then even this year was looking better, but then got banged up again. So they're not done with him. That is going to be the big thing that I'm going to be looking out for with this offense. But now, let's talk a little bit about what's next. Because I think that there's 2 spots that the Bears could be looking next. Because I think wide receiver set, offensive line, they might do some shifting around a little bit, but I still think that they just want to see more of Karan Amagaji as a guard. And they can always make changes later on to say, hey, you know what? We actually don't want you anymore. Or maybe they want to trade him away to see if someone else wants to take him. Because yet again, he was somebody that was, he has all the measurables that you want out of an offensive lineman, which sounds like, so what? Can he play? But a lot of people, like, yet again, anytime that we do scouting for offensive tackles, it just makes me realize how big of freaks of nature they actually are. They have to have the arm length. They have to have the quickness. They have to have the height. It's outrageous that what they have to do. He's got all those measurables. So maybe they try to trade him, something like that. That's personally what I would try to do. So, but yet again, we know that Ryan Poles might not necessarily like to trade players for draft picks. He likes to trade for players for draft picks. So at least he didn't do that this year so far. But next, and also, yes, I agree with Taco Man. Yeah, next draft linemen. Yeah, you draft offensive tackles early. You draft offensive tackles and defensive ends in the 1st, right? I love, I know a lot of us really like Roma Dunze, but I don't even want to think about this. Could you imagine Olu Fashanu on this team right now? He's looking like one of the top one of the top tackles for the Jets now. So it's like, yep, that would be really, really nice. Really nice right about now. So as we kind of go on, what's next though, I would still say running backs. Running backs is someone that I think that the Bears are going to be looking into. Now, since I told my brother-in-law to draft Kyle Monangai, I hope they don't get someone too good. But you're going to see a lot about their confidence in Monangai and if he's going to be able to be healthy with their moves at the running back position. Because if they don't do anything, it shows that they're pretty confident with him. But because all signs point to Monangai being the number 2 running back Roschon, if anything, might be more of a touchdown vulture. A lot of people, a lot of news out of camp are saying that, hey, Roschon, when he was out there, he's been banged up with that, ankle injury now. But when he was out there, he was really getting like majority of the snaps as a touchdown vulture. So for fantasy fans, that's what he's probably going to be doing, if anything. So that's my take on it. The only other spot is maybe defensive end, maybe cornerback. Defensive end is tough though, because Austin Booker, young guy that they really like. Dominique Robinson, someone that they might feel comfortable with. So what do you do? Because you have Daniel Hardy because of special teams. If anything, right, I would personally get rid of Dominique Robinson and bring someone else in, but I feel like, unfortunately, I'm feeling more that this would be set. So please prove me wrong, right? I'm more than fine with that, because I saw that Isaiah Foskey, former Notre Dame player, ended up getting released by the Saints. But we said this last show, he's someone that only had like 60 snaps last season under Dennis Allen. Yes, he was drafted by them. Still might have a lot of potential, but yeah, just not great. Now, the other thing that I'll say about Isaiah Foskey was he's still someone that like kind of surprises me. I don't know if he surprises you as well. For those that know the draft, know Notre Dame, because he might have the most sacks ever in Notre Dame history. And now he's someone that just gets cut after 2 seasons in the NFL, who's projected to be a NFL starter. And when you look at his combine, right? He had the production for Notre Dame, but then also you look at his combine, he was big, he was fast, but when I rewatched him, just because I'm like, what did I miss with him? But he was very, very upright, very, very, not a very fluid mover, but tested very, very well. So interesting thing. I don't really see him going to the Bears, but only time will tell. Brian Poles normally does a lot of moves right now, and he'll kind of shift around the roster. It's never really truly set here. So I expect something to happen. But we'll see. But we'll have you all covered, so don't you worry about that. So make sure that subscribe button, like out there in YouTube, and also download the podcast. You can just go out to your phone and search for Unbearable Sports. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. Y'all have a great rest of your night. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair, and you know that she's a